Welcome to our podcast, Schizophrenia, Three Moms in the Trenches. From the place where schizophrenia and real life collide. East Coast, West Coast, Middle America. With Miriam Feldman, Mindy Greiling, and Randy Kay. Finally, a place to talk about the truth. Welcome to episode 19. We are so excited today because our daughters will be joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, you see Angela, who's one of our daughters. The other two you'll just hear, and you'll get to know them pretty well. Now, sibling relationships can be amazing. They're a great source of meaning and enjoyment and mutual respect. And they can be challenging. Anyone who has a sibling knows that. But when someone finds out that their sibling has a mental illness, and particularly schizophrenia, they have to learn to adapt and to cope with this. And I find in all the classes of family to family that I've taught that there are a lot of parents there, and usually one or two siblings in the group, but often the sibling feelings and the sibling experience gets overlooked. And so in this episode, we invited our own daughters to talk about the lived experience of the sibling when schizophrenia hits the family. So, Mindy, since we can see Angela, why don't you start by introducing Angela, and then Angela, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Mimi will go and I'll go.
I would be very happy to. I'm always very proud of my daughter, Angela Greiling Keen. She is a reporter or a journalist, and she started out with a Washington correspondent assignment for some newspapers. She's worked for a transportation magazine. She's worked for Bloomberg for many assignments, but one that was kind of fun was when she had the White House beat and got to fly around on Air Force One with President Obama. And she also now is a managing editor for Politico. She has been a president of the National Press Club, and she's currently the president of the National Press Club Journalism Institute. So she's got a lot of media creds. And also, she found time with her busy life to take NAMI family to family classes. And I'm equally proud of her for that. So, Angela.
It is great to be here. Thank you for the introduction, Mom, Mindy.
You can call her Mom. That's okay.
Perfect. Yes, well, she pretty much covered my career. I'm a journalist. I've lived in Washington, D.C. for over 20 years. Grew up in Minnesota, which is where my parents and brother still live. And the one part of my bio that my mom left out is that I'm also a mother. I have a teenage daughter who has always, of course, been involved with her uncle, my brother, as well. So that's another interesting part of the relationship, I think, too.
And is Jim your younger or older sibling?
He's younger. He's 2 years younger, and we're the only two siblings.
Okay, thank you. Mimi, are you coughing, or can you be
done.
next?
Done
Okay.
coughing.
Okay.
So I'd like to introduce my daughter, Lucy, who is the middle daughter. We have three girls and Nick. And Lucy, I'll let her tell you about what she does. I'll just tell you about who she is. She is really the light of our lives. She is the most devoted, loving, supportive, wonderful sister anybody could ever hope for. And she has been, just there for Nick all the time. And I know, and we'll talk about the difficulties of it, but from this vantage point, all I've ever seen is a sister who fiercely loves her brother and would do anything for him, and has also become her own kind of ad hoc advocate and activist, calling out discrimination and issues wherever she sees them relating to mental health, and kind of changing the world one person at a time. So I'm incredibly proud of her.
Oh, thanks, Mom. Well, my name's Lucy. That was a very thoughtful introduction. I live in Nashville, and I work for Delta Airlines. I'm a gate agent. I'm also studying to become a doula. As my mom said, I am very passionate about speaking up and doing the right thing. And I've participated in a few NAMI walks. I've always wanted to figure out other ways to be involved in NAMI, and I think I see that definitely in my future. I make some art. Don't paint like the rest of my family, but I do a little bit of everything. I love to travel. That's kind of what I do.
All right, welcome. And as you can hear, Lucy's in her car driving home, as she told you. And so, Allie, I did not prepare a stellar introduction for you. But what I can say is Allie has been the light of my life since the moment she was born. She is, and it's going to be hard for you, honey, to call your brother Ben, but just put Ben somewhere in front of you so you don't slip and say his real name. She is Ben's younger sister by almost 3 years. And Allie she's one of the smartest people that I know. Like, her intelligence with people has been amazing all throughout her life. And I have to say that Ben's love for Allie has been such a stabilizing force in his life to help keep him as straight and narrow as he can get, especially when he's angry with me. We were a single parent family for a lot of years, and we fought a lot together. And for a while, it was me and Allie against the world, and I couldn't imagine a better partner. Allie is happily married to Mark, who she met at summer camp when they were both counselors, and by some interesting quirk of nature, managed to give birth to 3 children in 2.5 years. So, and no twins in there. And she's staying relatively sane. And she's the most amazing mother I know, and a great sister, and an incredible daughter, and sells real estate and works for a party planner. And someday will be a guidance counselor in the high school. So how's that sound, Al?
That sounds like I don't need to say anything because you said all my things there. Thanks a lot, Mom.
Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, I'm Allie, and everything that my mom said is true for the most part. Although I don't feel those things about myself being like, the best person in the world and all that. But no, I'm kidding. I live with my husband and my 3 young children, whom I had very close together. As she said, I have 2 part-time jobs on top of momming all the time. Yes, I have eventual plan to go back to get my master's in school counseling, which I kind of always knew I wanted to do ever since I really liked my high school guidance counselor. And undergrad studied psychology, and then, worked in social work briefly, and then said, don't want to do this. Went and always have worked with teens, worked in summer camps and up to the director level. That's where I met my husband, and then got married, had kids, and then kept having more kids. So that's why my master's has not happened yet. So it will happen when 2 out of 3 are in kindergarten. So that's going to be in 1.5 years, and that's great. I live in Connecticut, 3 miles from my mom, which is super helpful and wonderful. And that's really it.
That's it. Well, thank you. So
can you hear me okay, by the way? Because
it's perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect, actually. So now that we've all had a chance to meet each other, which I think was really important for us, because, we 3 moms have never actually met in person. So now we have 3 of the daughters that we haven't met in person, but these conversations are helping a lot of people. And that's what this is about. So now that we've established ourselves, I'm going to start with the first question. We're going to talk about past, present, and future. Each of you has a brother with a serious mental illness called schizophrenia. And I want to start by asking you about the past and what it was like for you growing up before your sibling developed an illness, and what it felt like for you as the illness started. I know that Jim's symptoms came earlier than Nick's and Ben's, but what was it like for you as the sister to see changes in your brother?
Hi, sorry. Your changes, like to see the changes in my brother for me, It was very difficult, obviously. My brother and I have always been very close. He and I were sort of like the two oddballs, I guess. I don't know. Like we weren't like the rest of the kids in the neighborhood, and he sort of took me under his wing and showed me the world through his eyes, and like sort of it helped me like understand like the things that I care about now. So when he started to get sick, it was just very hard because that connection was gone. I'm sorry.
You're making me cry, please. But
yeah, I mean, it was hard because it was like, you know, he's there, but he's not there. And because we were so close, and he took me to my first concert. We'd go shopping for cool vintage clothes together. Like all the music I listened to is because of him. And so the strong bond that we had dissipated, and it just was really hard.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Angela, I would follow up with that for you because mostly when Jim was sick and when he was diagnosed, you were not at home. But obviously Jim was getting sick, as Randy said, when he was a teenager, and we attributed it all to drugs and didn't think about mental illness. But when did you start suspecting something was really wrong with him? You were closer to him. I was so busy at that time.
And I would say I didn't suspect anything. So I was already grown up, being older. I guess I was really launched. I'd graduated from college by the time he was diagnosed. So I was living, 1,000 miles away. It was a pretty different experience, I think, not being there to see everything. And in some ways that made it, it was easier in a lot of ways for obvious reasons with distance, but also, more dramatic because you didn't see gradual changes. You saw changes, after many months. And of course, heard about things from my parents, but I think my mom probably shielded me from a lot as I was just, launching my own career at that time. And yeah, we were close as little kids, but definitely diverged as teenagers. My mom just referenced, drug use. That was not really the activity of my friends most of the time in high school. So, very different friend groups as we went through high school, and then we went to college in different states. But it was at the time he was diagnosed, putting aside early symptoms that were missed, like we were just at the precipice of having an adult relationship. So never really got to have that. So even, 25 years later, it's more of an older sister, younger brother relationship than as peers, which you would normally have if you're that close in age, as adults in middle age.
Okay. Allie, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I was going to say, I suspect your experience is more like Lucy's, but
yeah, that really got to me. Like we're sitting here thinking about it, and I'm thinking, did I block this like stuff out? But I don't think I did. I was like 15, so I was just little. I was just young, younger.
Yeah, you were
And
actually
so
12 when it started to get weird, but
right. But that,
but we didn't know what it was.
I definitely don't remember any of that. I mean, at 12, 13, 14, I just remember him being a big brother. Overall, sure, he had his quirks and intricacies, but it was years of such slow decline, I should say, I guess, into the abyss that is, and that it was only when I was 14, 15, I guess that I guess I have the real memories of it, because that's when I felt like there was a big shift. Meanwhile, of course, I was growing up through that that period of time, going through my own difficulty and, hormonally and all that stuff. So obviously super self-centered, as everyone is at that age. And then high school, we were in the same school, and which was cool at first, when he was a senior and I was a freshman.
Well, you know what? Because he had dropped out by then.
Oh, you're so right.
Yeah.
But he used to drive me. So people still knew him, but it was a little bit changing of like, oh, your Ben's sister was cool for a while. And then it became a little bit less of like something that I guess I felt like, not that I didn't feel proud of it, but it just changed. Like people's reactions changed a little bit. And so at home, for me, noticing it, I think I noticed a lot more fighting between my mom and him. And I guess, Mom, you and I used to talk about the changes that he was experiencing a little bit. I don't know. I guess I just don't remember a lot of
Yeah.
it.
I mean, I think about what he was to you before that, like before he was in high school. Would you say you guys had a really good relationship?
I can still say that I've always had a good relationship, considering everything. Like,
yeah,
we always had a level of trust between us. Of course, there were periods of time after he got diagnosed where we still had trust between us. There were still secrets between us.
Yes.
Did he buy me booze when he was of age and we weren't? Yes, he still did that for me. And silly as it sounds, that was a big brother thing that all my friends' big brothers did for them. So it was like, we still had a semblance of a relationship. It definitely changed for sure, but we were still there for each other in a lot of ways. But of course, I was experiencing the feelings of loss of kind of knowing moving forward as my friends' big brothers were progressing and going to college and doing other things that, that wasn't going to be probably in the cards for him.
Lucy had her hand up there for a second. Did you have something, Lucy?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, it's really, like, it makes me feel heard or something, like hearing you talk about your experience, because it was like hearing you say it, like I could have said more. I think I just didn't know what to say, but like it was very similar. Like I was like 14 or 15 when he started to get sick, and it was the same kind of thing. Like we were in the same school, we would ride the bus together, and then like as he started to get sick, it was very similar, like, oh, you're Nick's sister. And like, things started to shift, and all of his friends started going to college also. It's like very, very similar to what you were saying.
Thank you.
I felt heard when you were speaking as well. So
I put this on Facebook on our Schizophrenia 3 Moms in the Trenches page, and I just asked people what they would like us to ask you. And so we're trying to lump our questions into your past, and you guys have expressed it beautifully, and where you are now, and maybe fears for the future. And we will talk later. We want to stay with some positives, and you've already brought them up with, what has your life changed in positive ways because of your brother, but we'll get there. I have one question that came from somebody named Kathy Day, another mental health advocate that we know. And Kathy wanted to know from you guys, did you ever resent your brother for needing your parents so much? Did you resent your parents? Like, how did you work through that? Did you get a feeling of, wait a minute, he's getting all the attention and I'm not? Was that true for any of you in any way?
I can go first on that. And the answer is yes. Even though I was an adult, sometimes felt like if I'd go home, for Christmas or like, some special time, and, he'd be in crisis, and like everything would change because of his presence. So yeah, that's not necessarily the most mature answer, but it's the honest answer.
I respect that. For me, it was the opposite. I never felt like any resentment or anything. I just wanted to help. And I mean, I don't think that is a better answer or anything. I just, we each experienced it differently. But for me, I think it was very much just like, we need to help him. And that's about it. Like that, it was just as basic as that for me, my experience.
Maybe some of that is, you were there all along. And so you were in the helping mode, and Angela was coming home.
Yeah.
Wanting to be, honored as the daughter coming home that we hadn't seen forever. And, I think the perspective of older sibling versus younger sibling who's looking up to her brother, a younger brother is always kind of a nuisance, maybe compared to an older brother.
I could totally, I can do that.
That makes a lot of sense, I think. For sure. My feelings about that were, I don't think I felt resentful. And I think that was mostly due to the fact that I didn't really want my mom's attention on me at that point in my life, to be honest with you. I was like, she's busy. My mom was always busy, and I loved that. And I was busy, and that sounds it sounds horrible, but I don't think like I said, I think for me, I don't think my mom was always there for me when I needed her. So I think that for me, that was the big thing. Like, I didn't feel like any time that she should have been paying attention to me really went to my brother. So I think that I didn't feel, any lack because the amount of time I wanted or needed from my mom, at that age where it wasn't a lot, she was providing for me. So that was my experience of it.
All right. Thank you. That's so interesting to ask you that in this capacity. It's funny because my recollection and the way I tell your story, Allie, is that when you entered high school, your brother had pretty much just dropped out. You were 3 grades apart. There was a lot of tension in the house because he was not following the rules. And I remember when I sent him away to a troubled teen program out west, a great deal of relaxation in our household because it was just you and me. And maybe that was too much attention for you. But I felt that I was giving you a gift and giving us a gift to be able to be just the two of us and have him work through, because he was doing drugs at the time. And I did not know it was schizophrenia. I just remember finding the money to send him away for him, for me, and for you. So that is part of what we went through. But those are great answers. Thank you. Let's just bring it to the present day. Maybe it's the same answer, but is there? I know, Allie, you said to me, I've traded in a big brother for a little brother. I do remember that. But beyond that, is there what is hardest for you right now about your brother's illness nowadays with you as an adult?
I'll go first because you just kind of spoke to me.
Okay.
The hardest thing for me right now is just my worrying about him. That is what it is most of the time. Feeling sorry for him, worrying that he feels sorry for himself, worrying that he feels ashamed or compares himself to other people. And I'm always worried about how he might be treated. I know people are going to think what they're going to think about people. That's just life and that's just the world. But I think that I don't ever want him to be mistreated. And I want him to be able to achieve his goals, whatever they may be, at whatever time, depending on whatever med he might be on or might not be on. I think the biggest thing for me overall is like, I worry about him being his happiest and best version of the person that he is now. And my overarching feeling is worry.
Okay. That sounded like the end of the sentence. I think it was.
It was the end of the sentence.
Okay.
Lucy, I'd be really interested to hear your answer to this question.
Can you repeat the question just so I make sure I answer it correctly?
It's what's hardest for you right now in present day about your brother's illness?
Okay. The hardest thing for me when I think about him is I worry that he's lonely and that he is isolated. And I know he's with my parents and my mom gets to see him often. And he's very, very fortunate that he has caretakers that see him on a daily basis and he's able to develop relationships with them. But I know he's lonely and that hurts me like deep down, just knowing that he doesn't have anyone that he can just casually see. And I worry that he's just going to be lonely for his whole life. And that's hard because he's so far away. And some of the things Ali said too, like I relate very much so. But yeah, I think my most strong worry is just that he's lonely and that he is going to be lonely for a long time.
And Angela kind of answered that already, so you can answer it if you want, but the other two talked about already how their friends feel about their brother and that they looked up to them, and then later it was like, oh, that's your brother. And so that would be my question to you. How do your friends feel about Jim, and how do they support you?
Well, answering the first question first, the present worries, I would say safety, both for my brother. He's not presently in crisis, which is good. But when he is, safety to himself, but also harm he may cause others. He's caused car accidents, plural, in the past when he's been psychotic. So, what if something really bad happens with something like that? He's very big. So, I worry about what he might do to himself, but also obviously with, police shootings, that sort of thing. Like those are the kinds of things that cross my mind presently, as well as the safety of my parents, because he spends a lot of time with them. As far as my friends, when he first got sick, it wasn't really a thing just because my friends were all gone. Also, everybody had left for college and so forth. So I guess my friends would be in segments of people that I knew growing up who knew Jim or know Jim. And then, friends that I've made in college and beyond who didn't know him, they just know me. So it's certainly been interesting since my mother's book came out last fall. More friends have reached out and said, things like, I'm sorry I didn't ask over the years, like, that sort of thing that you would do if you had a family member of a friend with cancer, or, something, a physical illness. And people realized that over the years they hadn't necessarily asked, although some have, but certainly the majority, had not over the years with a brother with mental illness. So that's been an interesting response from my friends in recent times since they read the book.
Maybe I'm going to let you take the next question because you wanted to ask it.
Yeah, I'm interested from everybody has your life changed in any positive ways because of your brother? I spend a lot of time, a lot of it is just pep talking myself, but trying to see all the ways I'm a better person and this is better and that's better. Not really because of maybe in spite, but I'd be curious how you girls feel about that, is if your life has changed in any positive way. Dead silence.
I will go first, I suppose. Yeah, okay. So I'm very much like a look on the bright side type of person anyway. So this is, I guess, easy for me to answer just because I think it's helped me to have a better understanding of any kind of mental illness, have sympathy for people. It's helped me to have an automatic interest in psychology and all things related. I give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to their actions and behaviors, and understanding that you never really know what somebody's experiencing. So I think it's made me a better person and a stronger person and more understanding person than I would have been before, I suppose.
It's interesting for me to hear you answer that, because that's pretty much verbatim what I would say too, honestly. But it then also makes me wonder, I've never thought about it in that way, that maybe my brother getting sick is what assisted me to be that way, or if I just always was that way, or maybe like a little bit of both. Because I'm very much the same way, where I always am giving people the benefit of the doubt. If I see someone, and I'm more educated now because of self-education and my mother and just experience, and seeing my brother and just noticing certain things about people, and thinking, okay, well, there could be something more deep down off in this person's life than what is on the surface level. And I also think that a lot of people don't understand very much about mental illness. And so it's easy to just say, oh, that person is, insert whatever word you want to use. But for me, it's always like, let's have compassion for that person, because we don't know what's going on. There could be something more deep rooted that you don't even know. And so then at that point, in a positive way, from my experiences, I try to share that with people and say, maybe there's just some stuff you don't know, or like I try to just shed some light about mental illness if I can, if it's like the right circumstance or whatever. So I'd say that's pretty positive.
Yeah, and in the same vein, definitely the internal perspective part that Allie and Lucy both said, I would echo that. I would say also, it's made me a better boss. There's people on my team that have struggled with mental health issues. I certainly am in a place to understand that more than most people would be. I would also say that because our family has always chosen to be very, very open about Jim's illness, and my mom was an elected official for the first decade or so, or more maybe, after he got sick. So she was in a place, to speak publicly. I'm a journalist. I've certainly, had opportunities to either speak publicly or interview other people publicly in ways that have been informed by my experience with my brother. And then in private, if a friend or somebody else has a family member with a serious mental illness, I can, sometimes I don't have all the answers, but, I can sometimes guide from my experience.
Thank you so much.
Insert here that one thing that's a pet peeve of mine that I can't do much about, but Angela can, because she's an editor. And I hate it when someone says, I'm schizophrenic about something. And
me too.
Can't decide. And so I found something in a Politico story sometime in the last few months, and I just could text Angela and she got it out of there right away. So
that's amazing. Yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves as well.
I actually once wrote a letter to the editor on that, and I was corrected because it is a secondary definition in Merriam-Webster that schizophrenic can also mean can't make up your mind. But still, I think there's too much stigma and they should stop using it that way. So I totally agree with you guys.
I would guess you might get a different response in 2021 with so much change in language.
Yeah, that could be. Language changes all the time. The next three questions you guys have kind of already answered, and you may be sort of a select group because you are clearly three siblings who've each found a way to come to grips with your brother's illness so far. I know that other people may not be, and I just chalk it up to great mothering that you all have. No, it's you and how you've chosen to deal with it. But there may be other people who have these other feelings, but I'm not going to ask you these questions because you've already answered them. I just want to put the questions out there. So of any other siblings that are listening, know that you're not alone if you had these feelings. So somebody named Cindy Grossman on Facebook wanted to know, do you feel cheated that your mom spends more time with your sick sibling? But I think you guys have already covered that. Do you feel guilty that he got sick instead of you? That comes from Laura Pogliano. If you guys feel you've already answered that, or is there any survivor's guilt for any of you? Angela's shaking her head and I'm hearing silence. So I'll let that marinate for a second. Here's a big one, I think, because it looks a little bit into the future. And this comes from Kathy Burchett, who wants to know, do you ever fear that you or your children could also become schizophrenic at any given time because you have a brother with the illness?
I'll take that one first. Not really for me. I'm 45, so yeah, statistics are on my side at this age. But like I said, I do have a teenage daughter. And obviously there is a hereditary component. So I would say it's probably actually affected my mom's behavior more than mine. And she can speak to that, but she's started not lecturing, that sounds bad, but teaching.
Educating.
Teaching my daughter from a very young age about the extra influence of street drugs, given her potential propensity to have schizophrenia. So my daughter has, she's like written school assignments on the dangers of marijuana for someone who may be inclined to develop a serious mental illness, that kind of thing. So
look at Mindy's beaming. She's like, yeah, it's my granddaughter. That's amazing. Allie, Lucy?
I mean, I definitely have that fear that one day when I have children that they could develop mental illness. It's, for the hereditary reasons, it's in our bloodline. And I do think about that often. I know that my younger sister also thinks about that. We've talked about it before, which is hard, but I think that, we're lucky enough that we have the knowledge that if that were to happen, we would maybe have a deeper understanding of how to approach the situation, not from not as such a mysterious thing, but having more experience and thinking, okay, maybe this kid is struggling deep down and not just like trying to use drugs and, misbehave or like act out or whatever. So it's sort of it's like a seesaw or something. Like, of course it's a fear, but also I think that if it were to occur in my future, I would at least be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree with actually what both Lucy and Angela said. It is ingrained in my mind. When I was taking abnormal psychology, the graph in the textbook in college, when it said, if you have a sibling with a mental illness, your kids will have a 13% chance of getting it. And that like stuck in my mind. This is back in like 2005. So I've always thought about it. Like Angela said, I feel like I'm, 36. So like, I think I'm cool, but I do definitely think about that for my children, especially because I actually don't really know about my father's like family history either. So there's like so much unknown. For me personally, like we don't know about my dad's lineage. And so, it's a lot of
dad
unknown.
was adopted in England, and we have no idea or hardly just one uncle we found, but so the lineage is unknown, just so you know.
Yes. So that's my story. But I just definitely worry about it with my kids. And also for myself, I'm like hyper aware of myself, like psychologically speaking. So I'm like always you know, I'm just like always on guard with myself. Like, are you okay? Or is everything cool? Like, do we need to like, you know, call somebody? Like, just, you know, I'm always checking myself, generally anyway, just because I want to make sure I'm like in tip top shape, just because I've been through hard times of my own. And, you know, when I was pregnant, and I was like, okay, I'm probably going to get postpartum. Like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to deal with it right away. And like, luckily for me, it didn't happen, but I was convinced it would. And so anyway, like Lucy was saying, with my kids, I think about it with them. And I think that if and when they're going through difficult times, I will definitely let my mind go there even if just to rule it out. But I definitely worry.
Thank you.
The next section all came from Angela. So I don't know how old you are, Lucy. Angela said she's 45. Allie said 36. But the older you get, the more you start worrying about the future with your brother, because I am 73. So Angela has to think, you know, what about when I'm not around, when my husband's not around, and then we already have her be the person that's number 2 on Jim's trust, and on his advanced psychiatric directive. She's the fallback after we parents. And so I'm going to be curious to know what Allie and Lucy, how much worrying you've done yet about the future when your parents aren't around. But I'll just ask the first one to Angela, since it is her question. What are your major worries about when we parents aren't around to be the frontline advocates for your brother?
My worry is about you know, how independent he can be and how much he can be set up now to be independent, realizing he can't be independent, like fully understand that's not possible. But I would like him to have, you know, as many external supports as possible earlier, rather than like in a moment of crisis. Who knows what the future holds, but you know, I don't have plans to live where he lives. And I think he'd be better off staying where he is than moving to where I live, because the mental health system in Minnesota is better than in many places, and certainly better than where I am. You know, no mental health system is great, but it's less bad there than in many other places. So what I worry about is a lot of the day-to-day stuff. Yeah, I can manage bigger things from afar, but yeah, I can't keep him company. I think it was Lucy that talked about worrying about her brother being lonely. You know, I can't provide that sort of daily support that he needs. And I know it's hard to get those sorts of things in place from other sources. There's really no substitute for having a family member who's physically nearby.
I would say that I don't really worry about his future, because I know that he'll be fine. I'll take care of him. I'm prepared to, you know, one day when I'm 32, by the way. So, you know, one day when I have a home, or I know that my sister Rose has also mentioned, you know, having space for him. I think that between the two of us and our other sister as well, I think that we would figure it out. I'm not too worried. I know it'll be hard, obviously. No one wants to think about their parents being gone. But I would be fully prepared to just take it on and be okay with that. Because honestly, I think he'd be happier being nearby his sisters than being separated from us.
Yeah, I definitely, my mom and I talk about it all the time. My mom is very much into the whole, I don't want you to worry because I have this planned out and this planned out and this planned out and this arranged, but I still, of course, do, because I know that I will be and need to be and would want to be the one that is going to be the family. You know, my husband and I will be the family for him, to make sure everything's, you know, going okay. I don't know what his situation is going to be like at that point exactly. So it's hard to know. That's what I think the hardest part for me is not knowing exactly what the future will look like. What, of course, nobody ever knows that, but where is he going to be? Is he going to be in a group home? Is he going to be, who knows? So, I find it hard because I like to plan when I can, and I can't picture what it's going to look like. So, but I do I look forward to that? No, but of course I will do it because I love him. And I think I answered the question.
Thank you. You know what runs through my mind? I'm sure you've all seen the movie Love Actually. So the Laura Linney's character who cannot move, what terrifies me is her like, I just wanted to scream at her, don't pick up the phone. Your brother's safe in a mental institution. Go out with the cute guy. Like none of us ever wants our daughters' lives to be subsumed by their brother's illness. And so I think each of us, now obviously we're three very dedicated and educated moms doing our best, as are many of the warriors out there. We don't ever want you to not have a life because of your brother, but each of you clearly love your brother. And that does my heart a lot of good. For anyone listening who isn't quite there yet, I just want to read so that these feelings are normal. And Angela and Lucy and Allie mentioned all of them. But in Family to Family, there is a class where we allow the siblings to kind of make a list of what they call subjective and objective burdens, things that are hard for them. And just FYI, some of the things on the list that groups have come up with are common life challenges for a sibling is for some coping with the disproportionate amount of attention being given to the sibling, or for some growing up in an atmosphere of secrecy or confusion, silence or shame. Some have witnessed frightening symptoms. Allie, I know there was a time you drove up and Ben was being led into the ambulance in handcuffs, and that was very hard for you, and you may have blocked that out, but that was there. And these are things, sibling experiences that get shared. To see a loved one have a psychotic episode is not fun. Seeing personality changes. Some siblings are, I think you all have very gentle brothers, very sweet, gentle brothers. Other siblings don't have that. They might feel threatened or frightened or emotionally hurt by someone.
I have to interject here because that is not the case with Jim. He's totally sweet when he's not using illicit drugs and when he is taking his antipsychotics, but it's quite the reverse. Angela has, I don't know about Lucy and Allie, but Angela has been, emotionally, verbally abused by her brother. And so have we parents when he's not doing well, when he thinks that I'm a monster, and he had delusions needing to kill me because he thought I wasn't his real mother. So Angela has feared, she's kind of touched on it, but she's been light on it, feared for her parents' lives at the hands of her brother when he was using serious illicit drugs and when he was not taking antipsychotics. So I think that colors how you feel about your family member. Maybe Angela will talk about it a little more, but I just wanted to, in case any listeners think we've all had it
easy.
Sweet sons. I do have a sweet son now, but that's because he's on clozapine.
Angela, did your mom pretty much say it, or you want to add something to that?
No, I think she did. My daughter has also seen him, maybe not at his worst, but not good. So that was definitely hard. And at least at that time, she was old enough to have an understanding. I think that would have been, really hard if it was maybe like the age that Allie's kids are now, or, children who are old enough to know their uncle, but yet not understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's definitely been a challenging part of the relationship.
Yeah. So these are common things, and thank you for sharing that. It makes it realer when it comes from you. Go ahead, Mimi. What?
I see Lucy's hand is up.
Lucy, I see your hand too. Thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to add on to that a bit too. We're very lucky that Nick also has been, for the most part, as you said, gentle, but there have been rough times. There were a lot of rough times in the beginning where he was having psychotic episodes, and he was convinced that our father wasn't his real father, and he had very intense delusions, and there were a lot of fights at home. And I mean, we dealt with them, and we got through them, but there were definitely hard times when it was hard to detain him, or my parents had to ban him from our house because it was just too much. And I was 15, and luckily, old beyond my years, or whatever the expression is. But my younger sister was 11. She was still a little girl, and I think she has some more traumatic memories of that experience. So like I said, we're very lucky that he's in a very the most stable he's ever been now, but there definitely were rough times. So it was very much like a roller coaster in the beginning, especially.
Okay. Allie is not unmuting, so I think
I'm unmuting. I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was, though. Like, I'm hearing everyone's experiences, and
I was actually just reading a list of common feelings among siblings, because you guys are in a place of there's a graph of emotions that we use in NAMI about starting out with crisis and leading to advocacy, and somewhere in the middle is acceptance. And I think all 6 of us here are generally at a place of acceptance and leading to advocacy for our loved one. But anytime, and it's no secret on this podcast, our Ben went back in the hospital after 9 years of success. He went back in the hospital because COVID took his job and everything crumbled. And that wasn't fun. That was scary. And we try to shield, Allie, we try to shield your children from ever seeing him like that, which we can do now because he's in a group home. When he was living with us, that was a little harder. And they're not ready for it. So they just want to see good Uncle Ben. So that, that's what we do. And right now it doesn't work to have him with us. So the question was, we were just going through some of the feelings of ever feeling frightened or bearing the social stigma of having a loved one who's viewed as strange or scary or different. That you don't have to own up to any of those feelings, but just I wanted to put them out there in case any listeners are feeling those things and feeling like it's not normal. So
I definitely have felt all of those things at various times. I do remember when the scariest weird time when his symptoms were like freaky, when I did come home and the ambulance was there, and I feel like that might have happened twice, but
at least
I definitely remember that. And I remember talking to him in the bathroom once, and him trying to level with him when it was I don't know if it was his first big psychotic break. Mom, you would know more, but to me, that was the worst I'd ever seen him. And I just remember I was in the bathroom talking to him, and I was like, he was scared. He was crying. He was just scared of himself and not sure what was going on. And I will always remember that.
I do remember that. You were the one who calmed him down because he had called the police on me and I had called the police on him. Yeah. That's in the book. That was not a fun moment, but you were the loving force that brought him back to us enough so that he could talk calmly to the police.
Well, and I think that one of the things we need to acknowledge, and especially on this podcast, to other people who are listening, siblings especially, is this is tremendous trauma that these siblings go through. And it's the ramifications and the reverberations for that are things that they have to deal with the rest of their lives. And unfortunately, during the time when we're going through the worst of it, we as moms, you have one kid on fire. So that's where your attention goes. So the other kids are experiencing the trauma so acutely, and there's just not enough of us to go around to have any sort of palliative effect on those kids. And so these siblings, all our girls, they're beautiful, they're wonderful, they have good lives, they're good people, but it's a trauma that they carry. And I think that we need to acknowledge it, and we need to see it, and we need to make a place for it. And we need to make sure that other siblings who maybe don't have parents as engaged or as whatever as we are, understand that, you know what, if your mom doesn't see it, I see it, Randy sees it, Mindy sees it, we get it. This is trauma that you have been through too. And you have a right to process it and deal with it and be taken care of too.
I tell Jim now that he's doing well and he's on clozapine. Unlike Lucy and Allie, Jim only has one sister. So I tell him, you better be as nice as you can be to her, because if she decides to give up on you or doesn't want to be your trustee anymore, then you're going to have to pay a heck of a lot of money to the bank for those same services, and they won't be as personal and loving. And so I try to educate him too on treating his sister right, because you're right, Mimi. I'm sure all of our children have huge PTSD, as we do, from when our 6 sons were not doing well.
And bringing it back to the positives, because we're at an hour, and I think that's pretty much our limit for our half-hour show is an hour. But you women who are all amazing, from what I can hear and see, you, Angela and Lucy and Allie, you've grown from it. You are certainly great examples of coming to grips, and you're amazing women. And I'm just so proud to know all 3 of you. And I thank you so much for sharing your stories. Got a little raw toward the end, but I think that was important as well. I don't have any final words. I would like the 3 daughters to have any final words that you would want to say, anything that you haven't said that you would like people to know about the experience as a sibling of someone with schizophrenia, or how we can best help you or understand you. Any just final sentence you'd like to say?
I guess I would say it would be great. Obviously, you mentioned the NAMI family to family classes, which are wonderful for all sorts of family members. But it seems like there's very few, at least official networks that exist for siblings. And, obviously there's lots of people that go through this exact same thing, but it can be hard to find others with the same shared experience. So that's certainly a need that is still unfulfilled.
Thank you. Allie or Lucy?
I would just say to any listeners that feel alone, hopefully the fact that we're talking about this and putting our words out there, and it'll help other people to know that they're not as alone as they think that they are. And hopefully will encourage the continuation of talking about mental illness and mental health and ending the stigma, and hopefully just bridging that gap that we can't talk about it because it's not supposed to be talked about, that we should keep talking about it, and that it's important. And I just don't want anyone else to ever feel alone or that they can't get help. And like Angela said, it would be great if more, family to family, sibling to sibling kind of things maybe came out, because I think that's very important.
Okay. Thank you. Allie, you get the last word, honey.
I don't know that I have anything else to add. Those were pretty much summed up all the things I'd like to say. I mean, I'm all about hoping to continue the conversation for everybody and anybody that's involved, even people that just want information, even if they don't have family members, experiencing this. I, love to see all the positive things that I'm seeing in the world of people being open about things that were once not things that people were open about, and this being one of them. So I just hope that this brings people some either information or comfort in knowing that, people are willing to speak about their experiences. I believe it.
All right, thank you. Well, girls, your moms love you very much. Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Schizophrenia, 3 Moms in the Trenches, with Randy Kay, Mindy Greiling, and Miriam Feldman. To get in touch with us or to learn more about our books, please visit our websites at miriam-feldman.com, mindygreiling.com, or randykay.com.